in the family where the toughest leadership project exists, to learn to lead each other in a relationship, and then lead children made in your image and likeness, just like God made us in his image and likeness, is the best way for us to get to know God, for us to grow in character. And then if you have children, you're going to find out that you're going to find out that you still have time. We talked about it before. We have two of our kids are already out of the house, 26 and 24, Natalia and Cesar Jr. And then we have a 20-year-old and a 16-year-old still at home, but they're pretty independent. As they reach a certain age in the teenage years, they start building their own life. And that's how God designed it. And then our youngest ones, Jaden and Lucas, who are 13 and 12, we're experiencing the tail end of spending a lot of time with them. And the days are going to come when they're going to become more independent. And guess what? We're still going to have a long time, if God willing, to spend
with each other.
To spend together. Yeah, to spend together. Yeah. And we will have the foundation of having built a family, raise children together. And so what we're saying is, if you haven't listened to this, send me a message. When we have a conference, we talk about the example that Stephen Covey from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People talks about in one of his books about time management. This jar is the available time that you have, and the rocks is the things you can do in life. And there's only the big rocks, you can fit only about 3 or 4 in here. And the moral of the story is the big rocks only fit if you put them in first. So make sure that having children is a priority in your life. See something, right?
Okay. Yeah. Because the truth is we can't do it all. And I think we all have tried in different ways, and we just end up overwhelmed and frustrated. But I think if we get our priorities straight, then it is possible. I know you hear even Christians say, well, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And you just better make sure that all those things are things that he wants you to be doing, right? Because there are some things that I don't think he'll strengthen you and help you to do. But if it lines up with his word, and then yeah, he's going to give you the strength to do it.
Yeah, and remember, he wants us to focus on family because he knows that's how he designed us. That is how we will be fulfilled. A law is not to restrict you, but is to free you up, to know that you can be safe and enjoy freedom within that law. That's what God created laws. But the lie number 2 is thinking that you have time. You don't have much time. And I remember reading a history book years ago, and the history book talked about a legend about the Ayers Rock. I don't know if you're familiar with the Ayers Rock. Here it is, a picture online. It's a monolithic structure in Australia. So it's not a mountain, right? It's a rock the size of a mountain. And the legend says that once every 10,000 years, a little bird comes and stands on that rock to sharpen its beak. And after it's done, it flies away. 10,000 years later, another bird comes and sharpens its beak on the rock and then flies away. 10,000 years later, another bird comes and stands on the rock and sharpens its beak and flies away. And so for tens of thousands of years. And the legend says that when the whole rock has been worn out by the little birds sharpening its beaks, one day in eternity will have passed. It just blew my mind when I read that example, because it made me think about how short our lives on this earth are, and how long eternity is. Mm-hmm. Should we not trust in our Creator of following the principles that he has given us on where we should spend our lives? We should spend our time. Our bodies are made of about 37 trillion cells. And I was looking at how much is a trillion? This is a $100 bill, right? $100 bill. And then it shows here a packet of $100 bills. It's right here, about a half an inch thick. $10,000. What about $1 million? How much would that be? Well, it'd be 10 of those packs. It's not impressive, right? It's just a little, there it is. You can see it. You can put it in your backpack. That's $1 million. What about $1 billion? $100 million. This is $100 million in a pallet. $100 million. What about $8 billion? $1 billion, 10 pallets of stacked up $100 bills. But how much is $1 trillion? That's $1 trillion. Now, I'm going to show you the guy standing right here in the corner. It's the guy right there. That's $1 trillion. That is just blows my mind. Well, your body is composed of 37 trillion cells. And every cell has so much information. Scientists haven't begun to study just at cell level, because they say that every cell is like a little city inside with all the information. So should we not trust with the few days that we have on this earth to God, to our Creator, the one who says everything? Now, if you don't believe in God, send me a message. I'd love to talk to you. We need to have a different conversation. But if you do believe in God, if you don't believe in God, nothing matters. This talk is not going to mean anything to you. But I want you to think about this. Do you really believe that? Do you really believe that all there is the few years that we spend on this earth?
Yeah, but it makes me think about how a lot of times people think, well, I don't think God is personal. I don't think he thinks about me. I don't think I matter with all the people in the world and everything happening. And I think that's because we look at it from our limited viewpoint. But if a God can create a cell, our God created cells with how many trillions?
37 trillion.
37 trillion
cells in your body.
Cells in our body.